Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May, and this is Getting Started with Thinkorswim. And today we're going to be reviewing 10 cool tools that you may not even know were on Thinkorswim. I think there's going to be something here for just about everybody, for investors, for traders, for stocks, for options. So keep your eyes out. And as we go through these, what I'd like you to do is see how many of these are brand new to you and how many you have actually been familiar with before. Take a little running tally. How many have you seen before? I'll ask you at the end, but there should be just about something for everybody. Before we can get into all of that, though, let me first of all say hello to everyone who's chatting in through YouTube. Great to see all those familiar names again. Hello there, Paul and John, Eva, Frank, and everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. I really do appreciate your ongoing attendance and your contributions to these discussions. If you're here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after the fact, enjoy the presentation, but be aware that you're invited to join us in a live discussion. This one kicks off promptly 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Mondays and typically runs about 25 minutes. That's about what you want to budget. This one may go a little bit longer, but you're certainly welcome to join us. But let's get right into it. As we do, one thing I do want to point out is I'm joined here in the live stream by my very good friend, Ken Rose. He's going to be answering any questions in the chat that I can't get to. And if you do us both this favor and yourself a favor, follow us on X. Our handle's there at Ken Rose CS. Mine is at Cameron May CS. And that's a great resource that's available whether you're watching a live stream or you have to watch the archives. You can pop over to X. And if you reply to one of my posts, I try to reply right back to you. It's a great resource there. But let's get right into it. Very first thing that we need to bear in mind here is that there is risk associated with investing. Just remember the information here is for general informational purposes only. It should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. Options carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Investing involves risks, including the loss of principal, and any investment decision you make in your self-directed account is solely your responsibility. Now, I am going to be using the thinkorswim platform, so we're going to be using the software version of thinkorswim. Looks a little bit different than if you're on the web-based version of thinkorswim. So to download the software, just remember you can do that from the trade area on your Schwab online account, or you can go to thinkorswim.com. But let's set the agenda for today's discussion. Pretty simple agenda. I thought since we've been going in over the course of the last 8 weeks, we've had very structured lessons, just getting acquainted with thinkorswim. Today, I wanted to be a little bit more freewheeling and just explore maybe some of what I might consider to be the hidden gems of thinkorswim. So we're going to be going through 10 cool tools that you probably didn't know were actually on thinkorswim. We're going to do some for, as I mentioned, for traders, some for investors, for stocks and options and everything. So let's get right to the platform. And we're going to start off with one that I think could have appeal to just about everybody. And we're going to go kind of easy at first and then kind of dial it up, get a little bit more, let's throw this in air quotes, obscure, for lack of a better word, okay? So I would suspect that there are going to be some of you who are familiar with the first couple of functions that I demonstrate here, but I think that they're so widely applicable, I want to make sure that everybody's aware that it's available on thinkorswim. So one thing that's really nice about thinkorswim is the flexibility and how it can be customized. And all throughout thinkorswim, you can organize things into columns. And when we learn how to customize those columns, it's easy to start getting very crowded with the columns, okay? So for example, let's say I'm using my left display field over here, and it's kind of crowding in on the right display area. And my columns here, we're just on the monitor tab. You can see I have several example columns here. One of which are the sectors for the different stocks in our example portfolio, and they're kind of a little bit squished. So how do we unsquish a column, regardless of where we are on thinkorswim? Well, if we go right up to the column heading, you'll know that there are small margin divisors right here, or divisions right down between each column. As I hover over those, you'll notice I get double-headed arrows, which means that we can move that margin of the column to the right or to the left, widen it or narrow it. So for example, if I wanted to see the sectors more fully, I could come to the right side of that column and just drag it out to the right. It's just a click and a drag. Now, necessarily, that's going to compress some other columns. So if they start to get squished, now I have a mystery column over here. I can widen that if needed. Just a click and a drag. and we can just quickly reposition our columns until we're satisfied with how they're displayed. That's a nice little feature. Not everybody knows about it. On our cool tools, that's number one. So do a little mental check. Did you already know about that one or not? If you were over here in your watch lists and you had customized columns and one of them was getting a little bit compressed, did you know that you could expand that column? Well, now you do, if you didn't know. So on to cool tool number two. And that is, let's go to our charts for this example. I'm going to pop over here to the charts tab. And let's say that we're navigating through a watch list. So what I have here for an example is a watch list of the component companies of the S&P 500. This is a public watch list that's compiled and published by thinkorswim. You don't need to construct it. It's already there. You would just open up watch lists here in your left column and then click on the column heading and go to the public watch list in alphabetical order to the S&P 500. That's how I launched this, okay? But let's say I wanted to quickly work down through maybe the largest companies in the S&P 500. So maybe I've oriented the market capitalization column so that as we click on that, you can see we've gone from largest to smallest. So here's Apple. Yeah, Microsoft and Apple are kind of currently duking it out for the largest company in the world right now. They're kind of switching back and forth from week to week. It's interesting, little tug of war happening there. But let's say I wanted to load up a chart of Apple so I could look at it a 1 year, 3 week, or whatever, or a three-year weekly, whatever. I could type in the symbol here. And then if I wanted to look at Microsoft, I could type in the symbol for Microsoft and hit enter, working my way down through this list. Or you can actually link functions within thinkorswim. You can link functions, you can link pages, so you don't have to continually re-enter symbols. So to do this, here's another key within thinkorswim. Let's widen, click on the little margin between the left column and the right display area. Let's widen that up. And what you'll see, probably first time you use thinkorswim, is this link, this chain link right here. If you don't see it, it's because there's not enough space for it. So make sure that you've made enough space for it so that you can see that little chain link. Then if I click on that, it gives me a menu of choices going in numerical order from 1 to 9, and then there's a range of colors associated with those. Don't worry too much about number and color here. Just know that they're different, okay? What we want to do here is let's link our watch list to, notice there's another chain link right over here. Let's link that to our charts. So as long as I choose the same number or the same color, whether you're numbers oriented or color oriented, great. Let's choose number 1 red here. And I'm going to choose number 1 red over here. And then notice what it did. Apple was highlighted in my watch list. And since those are linked, it automatically populated Apple on my chart over here. And if I were to then move that highlight to Microsoft, that was just with a click of my mouse. It automatically loads up a chart of Microsoft. And I can even just use the up and down arrows on my keyboard. See, I hit the down arrow, moving along through that watch list. I'm not having to enter all those symbols. It just automatically feeds that symbol into the chart because they're linked. And we can link to other areas of thinkorswim. So for example, let's say my habit is to look at a chart and then pop over to place a trade if we're intrigued by a stock, okay? So then we go to the trade tab and look at that, it's the wrong symbol. How do you think we might recruit that symbol from the chart? Well, we just need to link here. So I'm going to change my link to red. And now NVIDIA, which was already on the chart, it was already in our watch list, is now also populated in the trade tab. So keep an eye out. Everywhere there's a link on thinkorswim, that means that we can link to other functions within thinkorswim. Now, we don't have to use the same link. Maybe we want the trade tab linked with the charts tab, and so we use one color. Maybe we want our watch list linked to the analyze tab, so we use another color. Okay? All right. Jack, you're saying this is more than getting started. I've never used thinkorswim. Yeah, Jack. I had that fear as I was laying out this discussion. I still think this is going to be useful even if you're brand new to thinkorswim. But what we just completed is a series of 8 structured lessons. And what you can do, and I suggest this for everybody, make sure that you have subscribed to our Trader Talks channel on YouTube. And all of those lessons are actually archived there in our playlists on YouTube. And you can just go through our 8 lessons. And it literally starts with lesson 1, Introduction to Thinkorswim. And so the last 8 weeks, Jack, I've been entirely focused on making sure that everybody could follow along step by step. It was just this week I decided, let's mix it up a little bit different. And let's just show some things that I still think are basic functions of thinkorswim that might also, pass the radar of some users of the platform. Okay. Yeah. But I do want you to know there's that great series of lessons 1 through 8. You'll see them labeled lesson 1 of 8, lesson 2 of 8, lesson 3 of 8. Just go to the playlist for the channel on on YouTube. Great. All right. So there's 2 cool tools. And I would suspect there's going to be some here. Jack, you're not going to be alone. These are going to be brand new to a lot of people. There are going to be others, though, that are going to be like, Cameron, check, I already knew about linking. Check, I already knew about column adjusting. Well, this next one, I would suspect most of you are not going to know. For some of you, it might be nice. You ever watch, your favorite news channel and it has a little streaming ticker? And you wonder, why do they have those tickers there? Why would I care about those? Wouldn't it be nice if they were streaming the tickers that I was interested in and just constantly updating those? That's available on thinkorswim. So you can find that if you go right up here to the home page. And bear with me for just a moment. I need to take a peek behind the screens. Yep, there we go. But I'm going to click on that home screen. And you'll notice down here on the bottom is a streaming ticker, like a ticker tape, of symbols that are actually of interest to this portfolio because I've linked it to my current account. So there's a menu right over here where we can choose which tickers we want to be showing. Could be tickers from all sorts of watch lists, or we could just choose our current account positions. Okay. So this is giving me an update on how those stocks are doing. And I don't always have to. Debbie, you love that streaming ticker? That's a nifty little feature, huh? Here's another cool thing. Watch what I'm going to do now. I'm going to come here to thinkorswim, and I'm going to pull the bottom of the screen up. So it's just a click and a drag. So you're seeing the bottom of my slide deck back here. And I'm going to detach this ticker. See that little window over to the right? Just detach that from the normal thinkorswim platform. And I'm going to sort of reposition it down here. So guess what's going to happen now? Now I can use the rest of the platform, and that ticker stays right down there at the bottom. Is that cool tool number 3? All right. So, and by the way, if you're using any links, Jack, since you're new to the platform, thank you, Ken, for adding those links. But there are links that have to be imported into the thinkorswim platform. So if you don't know that yet, don't worry about it, Jack. For those that actually use those sorts of links, I'm not going to get into how those are added to the platform today. But thanks, Ken, for keeping those posted. But yeah, Jack, they don't work like a normal URL where you can click them. You actually have to import them into the thinkorswim platform. Okay. All right. So nice. Okay. I think we've just moved from, some of you were 2 for 2 so far. Now you're okay. We're 2 that I knew, 1 that I didn't. All 3 of those, I think these techniques can have application to just about anybody on thinkorswim, whether we're an investor or a trader, whether we're doing stocks or options. Nice little features there. Next up, I think is also widely applicable, whether trading or investing, whether stocks or options, and it's a charting function. So let's go to our charts. And, I think, and by the way, we're not going to be using this left column for just a moment, so we can hide that. And there's a little right here on the charts. I'm going to click on the little hide, the little toggle switch. That little arrow is just going to push that off to the left. We go back and bring that back if we wanted to click on it and move it back to the right. Anyway. But thinkorswim has some fabulous charting capabilities. And I do get the question from time to time, Cameron, what if I'm keeping an eye on several stocks at once? Maybe I want to have them all displayed on my screen all at once. As a matter of fact, I answered a comment on YouTube just today where somebody asked that. There are a couple of ways that we can do that. One way is to detach the chart. So we could come up here to the little menu icon, looks like a dot, 3 dots and 3 dashes, and select detach. And that creates a chart in its own separate window. And we could move that off maybe to a side screen. You can see this is now its own independently maneuverable chart. But another thing, I think that wasn't one of my cool tools. One of the cool tools that I wanted to get you acquainted with, that some of you are familiar with, but I want to make sure that the navigation is as smooth as possible, is the grid feature right up here. Notice there's just a big empty box there. That's because it's just showing us that right now we're using one chart. If we click on that, we can change to 2 charts or 4 charts or 6 charts or 9 charts just by hovering over this layout and choosing what display we want. Okay, so how about I go for, let's go for 4 today. So I'm going to click on the 4th chart right there, and you'll notice this has now brought up a grid of 4 charts. But the first one is the only one that's occupied. That's because we loaded up NVIDIA. Now we can use this second grid cell, we call these individually cells, to retrieve other charts. Let's put Ford in this window. Let's put GE in this window. And let's maybe put, and these are just top of the mind, completely example charts. So we can load up other charts here, and you'll notice now these are different. Yeah, Eva says the grid feature is too cool for school. Well, we're talking about cool functions on thinkorswim, right? But notice that they are different. This is one style of chart, and this is another style of chart. And I'm using the word style very deliberately, okay? Let me show just a quick navigational tip for this grid chart tool. I'm going to, first of all, zoom in on just this one while maintaining a layout of 4. So here's what I'm talking about. Up in the upper right of any of these is another menu. If I click on that menu icon, I can choose to maximize this cell. Remember that we call them cells. Let's maximize that cell, and we're looking at that. And then if I want to advance to the other charts, I can just use these arrows to go forward to the other charts that I've loaded. And if I want to go back to all 4, I just click on the back arrow. Might have done that one a little bit quickly. Let's maximize this again. And there's the back button to take us back to seeing all 4 at the same time. But what I wanted to show you within this, and this was one of those cool features, we'll call this the grid chart plus this next feature. I'm going to call that cool tool number 4. And that is, we can actually automatically load up the same style for each of these different grid charts by selecting style. So we're going to go to style. And let's say we want this style of chart. Maybe it's a fairly basic candle chart. It also has expiration dates for options. Maybe this example trader is an options trader. Let's go to style. And I'm going to save this style. Okay. And maybe we're just going to call it basic with expirations. It doesn't matter what you call it here. Just something that's meaningful to the trader or to that investor. And let's just save that. Now, if I go to my other charts, I can just go to style and I can load that style that I just saved. Look at that. Advance to the next one, load that style, advance the next one, load that style. And so if we're looking at them individually, we're looking at the same style. Or if we're looking at them in the aggregate, they all have the same style. So you don't need to go in, I'll admit something. When I first started using thinkorswim, I would set up the grid and I think, oh, this is amazing. And I'd set this one up with the way that I preferred to have it set up. And then I'd come over here and I'd go through all the setup process to set that one up, change it to the time frame that I preferred, candle versus line, all the different little style settings. And then I realized, I could just load the saved style. So, yep, with apologies, I know for Jack and for others who are new, this is a little bit deeper in the weeds. Some of these are going to be 1-click, 2-click things. This one, Why not? Let's indulge ourselves a little bit and go a little bit deeper into the platform. That's cool tool number 4. Okay. Let me, you know what? We all had a good enough look at the ticker down here. As cool as it is, I'm just going to delete it. I'll show you how you can get rid of it. You just click on the X and it's gone. And then you can just drag your platform layout back out to full screen. And let's go back to just that one chart view. All right, number 5. We're shifting now. We've just given a little bit of attention to features that could be useful to everybody, some that could be more useful, maybe a grid, possibly more useful to a trader versus a longer term investor. Maybe they don't need to move through the charts quite that rapidly. But I'm going to shift gears and talk to the traders in the investors in the audience for just a moment. And I'm going to go to the trade tab, and I want you to give me some feedback here. How many of you never saw this? Maybe you've been using the thinkorswim platform for a while and didn't realize this was there. When you go to the trade tab and you load up a symbol here, it displays some information about that stock right down there. You don't have to do anything special. Go to the trade tab, type in your symbol, and automatically you can see the last price it traded for, the net change, the bid and the ask, the volume, the open, high, low, that stuff. Well, for our investors, I get the question all the time, Cameron, where can I see the dividend information? What's a quick way to find dividend? This looks like it's all oriented toward trading stocks, trading options. Well, actually, if you look right here, you'll notice there's a little caret or a little arrow pointing to the right. And on thinkorswim, when there's an arrow, it means you can click it to point down or click it again to point to the right. I'm going to click on that arrow, and there's a hidden line of additional data that's potentially more appealing to the investors in the audience. Look at this. We can see a dividend yield if the stock pays a dividend yield. How about I'm going to switch my chart here. How about we bring up a stock like XOM, maybe something that pays, not XOM. Let's go to Altria Group, MO. Okay, again, this is not a sales pitch for any of these stocks. It's just as an example, but here's MO, has a dividend yield of 9.68%. I can see the PE ratio. I can see the actual dividend quarterly in this case. You can see that it's paid quarterly, the dividend frequency. I can see the ex-dividend date. So if we want to extrapolate out 3 months from that, we might be able to guesstimate where the next ex-dividend date might fall. We can see the 52-week high and low. We can see the number of shares and the beta. How volatile is this stock relative to the S&P 500? If you're not familiar with beta, it really is just an expression of historical volatility as benchmarked against the S&P 500. If you see a beta score of 1, it means the stock moves about with the S&P. If it's a 1 point something, 1.2, 1.3, that means that stock tends to move about 20 or 30% faster than the S&P, but generally in the same direction. If you see a number like this, 0.7, that might mean that this is about 30% less volatile than the S&P. All right. So all of that could be interesting, but this is cool tool number 5. I'm just going to call it the trade tab hidden line. That I think it's one that can just escape the attention of a lot of us because we don't know to click on that little button. So I just wanted to show that to you. Quick way to get dividend yield, PE ratio, and beta. Okay. Now, on the same along the same lines of dividend investing, let's stick with investing for just a moment. I want to talk about charts. Maybe I'll just stick with Altria Group as well. Let's go to a chart of Altria Group. It is linked to our trade tab, so notice the platform already knows this is what we're looking at. Look at that chart of Altria. How does that look? For a technical investor or a trader, might not look too appealing. Let's switch this even, come up here to the top, change our time frame to, you know what, I'm gonna even go to a 5-year chart. Let's bring up a custom time frame, 5 years, weekly. Click OK. If we look back 5 years ago, and we look at where this stock was, let's look at end of the week from 5 years ago to where we are right now. Not a great trend, right? Well, this is a stock that historically has paid a comparatively high dividend. And what I didn't know when I first got into investing, and it's been more than 2 decades now, but I know everybody starts somewhere. I didn't know that stock prices are adjusted downward every time a dividend is paid. As a matter of fact, it didn't even make sense to me. Why in the world does a stock price need to be adjusted down just because a dividend is paid? Well, a dividend literally means the company, and this is the way that I think about it. It's not actually how it works, but the way that I think about it, just imagine a company writing 1 million, 2 million, 3 million checks. Again, it's not how it works, but it helps to think about it this way. They're spending a lot of money to send money out to their shareholders, a lot of money. Altria Group is sort of a more exaggerated version of this concept. And if they're doing that every quarter, they're literally writing off a big asset from their ledgers every quarter. And that also brings down the value of that company. And if one subscribes to the idea that the price per share is basically the aggregate valuation, according to the aggregate wisdom of all investors in a company like Altria Group, it's the current valuation of a stock with all assets and liabilities, and then you take some of those assets off the books. Guess what happens to that valuation? Yeah, it drops. But yes, share price is adjusted downward when a dividend is paid. So if lots of dividends are paid over a long period of time, what influence can that have on the share price, especially if markets, let's just say market demand isn't offsetting all those dividends? Well, it can give the impression that a stock is underperforming. So we might look at a chart from a 5-year perspective on a company like Altria Group and say, this looks just terrible. Well, the standard practice on most charts is to just leave those dividends out of the equation. And for some investors, they're like, well, that doesn't actually reflect the total performance of the stock, because price appreciation or depreciation is one thing. But what if we were to put all the dividends back into the equation that we were paid over the course of the last 5 years? Could that change the outlook? Yep. By the way, the links, remember, all that can deal with that. Anyway, let's change that outlook on Altria Group. Right up here in our chart settings, I'm going to click on this gear icon on our charts, and I'm going to go to equities. And notice here there's a field that says adjust for dividends. And right now the default is to just adjust the chart for special dividends. In other words, what this means is to kind of move the price back to where it was before a dividend was paid. A special dividend is just when a company announces, maybe it's just a really big outsized dividend, and it has a huge impact on the charts. And maybe to adjust for that, a charting service will sort of make, fix or repair that price trend as though the dividend were never paid. Well, if we click on this, I'm going to choose all. So what I'm doing here is showing how price has done if all those dividends hadn't been subtracted from it in the first place. What do you envision is going to be happening with the chart of Altria Group, which pays this very large dividend? I know, Eva, spit it out. I got it out eventually. Yeah, let's click apply and click OK. And now my line no longer applies. I'm going to right click on that and remove that drawing, because now if we look back at, that first week from 5 years ago and look at what price plus dividends has delivered to our hypothetical investor, it's a very different scenario. So once again, there is, we're going to call that cool tool number 6. How many of you knew that cool tool was there? Once you're on charts and once you know how to do it, you just pop up here. You can change this, and this really would have most application for a dividend investor. Go to equities and adjust for dividends. I'm going to set that back to special because that's sort of the standard. But particularly for dividend investors trying to look at maybe what they might consider to be a truer picture of how a stock is performing plus dividends. That's how that can be done. So I'm going to click apply again, click OK. Let's get rid of this old drawing. Right click on it and delete it. Maybe even switch this back to a 1-year chart. All right. So that's a couple of cool tools for investors so far. That hidden line on the trade tab, the changing of the dividend feature. One more. Let's do a couple more. All right. Let's talk about sector analysis for just a moment. For some investors, they like to keep their eyes on which sectors are doing well and which are doing poorly. The S&P 500 is made up of approximately 500 companies. Actually varies a little bit above and below 500. But each of those companies are assigned to 11 basic categories based on what they do for a living. You know, you have some technology stocks, so they're lumped under technology. You have some real estate stocks, they're lumped under real estate, utilities, and so on. And for some investors, they like to follow the ebbs and flows among those different sectors. Now, within thinkorswim, right here on the charts, thinkorswim has actually compiled a list of those sectors, and you can find that right over here in the left column. I'm going to click on that little column toggle where we've hidden the column. Right now, I've selected the S&P 500, which is showing me the 500 companies that make up the S&P 500. Now let's look up the sectors that make up the S&P 500. So I'm going to click on that column heading, and I'm going to go down to, in alphabetical order, the public watch list, and I'm going to choose sector indices. Okay? And this is going to show us the 11 sectors. Now, by default, it's just showing us the symbols. And symbols can sometimes not apparently relate to a stock. Come on. I mean, if you think about the company Salesforce, its symbol is CRM. How many companies are there out there where the symbol Altria Group, its symbol is MO? Okay. Yeah, the symbols here may not give one great insight into what the sector is. So to see the sectors, we can just click on the symbol. And then if we hide this left column, we can see which sector that is. This is the energy sector, and we can see what's been going on with energy recently. As a group, that sector's been a little bit under the weather, okay? Now, another thing that we might do, since we may not want to have to toggle back and forth, come over here to see what the sector is, and then go back over and click on the next sector, we can customize our columns. And one column that I might suggest, if we want to see those sectors as we customize this, we're going to click on the little gear icon. I'm going to choose Customize. Remember the word description. What is the description of this sector? Okay, so I'm going to choose description. I'm going to add that as a column and then click OK. Now, what that's done is we already had market cap. We already had last. What are these 3 dots? There's our crowded little description. We need some space, so we can click and drag. There's that description. If we need more space, we can widen it out here. Energy, materials, industrials, consumer discretionary, and so on. And we could move this this column heading over there. But one cool tool that I wanted everyone to be aware of that we may not have been aware of is that to do a quick technical view of the component sectors that make up the S&P 500, you just load them up. And if you want to, load up a description and then quickly click through those and maybe see which sectors are doing poorly. So here's energy, struggling. What about industrials? This one's apparently accelerating and significantly ahead of energy over the last several months, right? Okay, that's cool tool number 7. How are we doing? Out of the 7, how many were familiar to you? How many are this is a first-time view? I'll say for some of you, anytime there's an introduction to a new tool, if you haven't ever used it before, it might take a little bit of repetition. So make a couple of notes and then go back after today's webcast is over and do this in your paper money account. Practice the navigation to these tools and practice the navigation of these tools. Another thing that's reassuring is if you're not catching it all during the live stream, this pressure is really only on those that are watching the live stream. You don't have to remember it all just as I'm saying it. Just bear in mind that these webcasts are archived, posted to our playlist on YouTube, and then you just go watch them at your own pace, hit the pause button if you need to, to digest what we've talked about. Okay, 3 more. Let's do one more. One more for the investors in the audience, because I think thinkorswim users can have the impression sometimes, and I think mistakenly, that this platform is only for traders. Nope, there are lots of fabulous tools here for investors as well, those that have that longer term outlook. And I think a lot of us might describe ourselves as having some of our portfolio allocated for trading, maybe a lot more of it allocated for investing. It's going to be a personal preference from one investor and trader to the next. But what if we wanted to take a look behind the scenes? Charting is great. It can be, it carries its own potential and its own shortcomings. But for some, they prefer to look at the company behind the stock. So they want to look at what we call the fundamentals of a company. And there's actually a dedicated page to the fundamentals of publicly traded companies. And you can find that on the Analyze tab on thinkorswim. As we hover over that, you're going to see one of the choices in the drop-down menu is fundamentals. And let me throw out a question here. I know that even among our investors who are familiar with the fundamentals page, you're going to be familiar with some of the tools that are available there. But let me say, where could we go if we wanted to see a breakdown of a big company? What are its primary sources of revenue? How does it make its money? That seems to be a potentially important question for a fundamental investor. If I go to fundamentals, how about we switch gears here? Let's look at Disney. Okay, so I type in Disney. Lots of fundamental data here. As I scroll down through, I'll leave you to read through this on your own. Just know that we found this by Analyze and Fundamentals. But the cool tool number 8 that I wanted to talk about today is down here at the bottom. Now, this is a tool that's provided by, this is a third-party provider. It's completely separate and unaffiliated, called Trefis. But this Trefis tool does give us a breakdown of where a company's primary revenue is derived. And if you look at Disney in this example, these are the divisions of Disney, and it's shown as a percentage of market capitalization. But what are the primary drivers of revenue? Media and entertainment, parks and experiences. Okay, if I click on that, and we just call these individually blocks. If I click on each block, it'll give me a more detailed breakdown. Networks, content sales, direct to consumer. What's that sound like? Streaming, right? If I click down here, US parks, consumer products, international parks. It'll break down in pretty specific percentages. That's the Trefis tool. That's cool tool number 8. There's lots more here on this tool for those fundamentally or investing oriented viewers of the channel. So hope that I've shown you some things that are potentially valuable to you. But let's wrap it up with two tools that are really more oriented toward the options trader. Okay, I do get the question from time to time, Cameron, is there a chart of options on thinkorswim? How do I bring up a chart of how an option has done over the course of its lifespan? Yes, there actually is, but you have to know essentially the symbol for an option. Now, we don't call it an option symbol anymore. It's referred to as an option code. So let me show you where to go find the option code and load up a chart very quickly. So let's go to the trade tab. Let's switch up our symbol here again, and let's use Apple. Okay, it's just the first symbol that sprung to mind, so we'll use that as our example. Down below is our familiar option chain. As I open up this option chain, it consists of a series of columns again. And these columns, as with so many columns in our thinkorswim layout, are customizable. So let's go to the current layout, which is showing Delta, Theta, and Vega. This is our current layout. And I'm going to customize this layout. And guess what's one of the columns that's available? Option code. There it is. So we're going to choose option code. Let's add that as one of our current set of columns and click OK. And there is that symbol. Now, don't try to memorize the symbol. Okay, we could get into the formatting of a symbol, But what I did want to show you, number one, is yes, you can retrieve symbols and have them displayed here in your options chain columns if you like. But also, if we right-click on any one of those, I wonder, I don't know, I don't have any idea, how is this Apple 16th of February 195 call option done since its inception? Well, I can right-click on that and look for more information on this symbol. Let's throw that onto thinkorswim charts. So there's our now familiar grid. And as I choose that, oh, hold on a second. Did I choose more information on Apple? I meant to do it on, yeah, more information, not on Apple, but on the symbol, on the option. There we go. There we go. Oh, this must be, what? Why does this chart look like this? Well, this must be the very first day this symbol was introduced. That's interesting. You can tell I didn't premeditate this symbol. Yeah, I see just the one, that one candle tells me it's only been available for one day. Okay, so we might want to go back here, load up Apple again, and choose maybe a different expiration. Okay, let's go to maybe the 15th of March. Let's choose a different strike price, right click, more info, thinkorswim charts. Did I do that right? Anyway, you get the point. But that's a quick way to load up your symbol to a chart. That's cool tool number 9. We have time. Cool tool number 10. This is for those options traders who know that the outcome of an option, if we allow it to go to expiration, is determined largely on so many strategies with where a stock price falls on a certain date. It can be really important to understand the probabilities. Well, if I need, for my, let's say my vertical spread, I need the stock price to be above a certain level on a certain date, what are the odds of that happening? For my iron condor, I need the stock price to be between certain levels on a certain date. What are the odds of that happening? Well, what we're discussing here are probabilities, okay? And there is a function on thinkorswim. If we go to the Analyze tab, called the Probability Analysis tool. Now, I just threw out some very vague hypotheticals. Those options traders in the audience know what I'm talking about. The performance of an option is largely determined by the intersection of price and time, right? Certain price levels at a future date. And this probability analysis tool is slick and quick at determining those probabilities. So what we need to do, go to the Analyze tab, choose Probability Analysis, and all we have to do is type in our symbol. So let's switch our symbol again. Okay, let's maybe say that one is trading Microsoft. So we type in Microsoft, and we get here a parabola known as the probability cone, but really it's just an intersection of prices. So these are potential prices in the future for Microsoft, $350, $400, $450, intersected with number of days into the future, 10 days into the future, 20 days into the future, 30 days, or you'll also see that there are specific dates here. These are expirations for the options on Microsoft. So if I'm looking at, let's say I have an option that's expiring on the 16th of February, and I want to know what the probability is that the stock is going to be above, oh, let's say $350, all I have to do is point my cursor at the grid, go to the 16th of February, so I've chosen my intersection of time, and intersect that with the price level that I'm interested in, 350. So you'll notice as I move my cursor around, there are crosshairs that are following me. Let me show you over here. There will be a little bit more clear, okay? But if I put that back on my selected expiration, settle it in on the price, what I can see is above and below my horizontal line right next to my crosshairs are two numbers. And those are probabilities of price being above my selected price level on my selected date or below. So I could say, oh, there's about a 95% chance that Microsoft is going to be above $350 on the 16th of February, there's about a 5% chance, 4.5%, 5% chance that it'll be below that level on that date in the future. So just by moving my cursor around on this chart, and yes, there are other functions here that I'm not going to get into, but this isn't every tool on thinkorswim. These are 10 cool tools that you might not have known were on thinkorswim. There's our probability analysis chart. All right, that's cool tool number 10, guys. We've accomplished what I set out to do today. Hope you've enjoyed this discussion. I did know this was going to be going certainly deeper than we have over the last 8 weeks as we built through those lessons just to introduce us, get us familiar with the navigation of thinkorswim. So if you're new to thinkorswim, make sure that you have subscribed to our YouTube channel and you're going to the playlist, going through lesson 1 of 8, lesson 2 of 8, lesson 3 of 8, to really get acquainted with the thinkorswim platform. But tell me, of the 10, how many of these tools were actually familiar to you? And that'll also tell you how many of these tools are new. That there is, I think, a good description of the value add of this presentation. I was looking forward to discussing this. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed preparing it. Time for me to let you go, but as you go, just remember a couple of things. If you're not following Ken or me on Twitter, you're missing out on a great resource. My handle there, at Cameron May CS, Ken's is at Ken Rose CS. And if you reply to one of my posts, I try to reply right back to you. It allows for interaction that's only otherwise available here in a live stream. So it turns a rare opportunity into an everyday opportunity. The other thing is, if you're enjoying our webcast, make sure that you subscribe to our Trader Talks Schwab Coaching webcast channel on YouTube. You can find my lessons and the rest of our archives right here on our playlist. So make sure that you've subscribed there. Everybody, thanks for your time today. I'm going to set you loose. I'll look for you again next Monday, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is when we kick things off for this webcast. I have other webcasts throughout the week. I'll also look for you on X. But until the moment arrives when I see you again, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.